Welcome, everyone, to the No Bull Just Bacon podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Allan, and with me here today is Coach Beth to answer all of your burning health and fitness questions from around the social media world. This is a rapid fire episode, and we have a ton of great topics to cover today, so let's get rolling. And the first one is a rather important topic for all of you who are looking to lose body fat. The question is, can you explain the basics of metabolic adaptation? This is a cornerstone for understanding what's going on when you are trying to lose body fat. And there's a lot of confusion around it because there's so many claims around what happens when you lose body fat, what causes stalls in weight loss. And so if we go over this, you'll have a better idea of what's going on, and then we'll have the knowledge to be able to address that. Metabolic adaptation is a set of physiologic changes that tends to be the reason most people stall in weight loss journey. The groundwork for this is understanding energy balance. You know, if you take in more calories than you're burning in a day, you're going to gain weight. If you burn more calories than you're taking in a day, you're going to lose weight. End of story. It's thermodynamics. No one can break this. It doesn't matter if you're in perimenopause. It doesn't matter if you're on steroids. It doesn't matter. Like, none of this. There's nothing that alters this. Now, certain things can shift where energy balance plays. So for a person of 150 pounds that's 6 feet tall, that has the same body composition as another person, if you have a thyroid disorder, maybe your maintenance levels are 200 calories less than the person with a thyroid disorder. That doesn't discredit energy balance. It shifts where that equation is. But you go low enough, you're still going to lose weight. It's impossible. There's never been anybody the typical example that people use is prison camps. There's never been a person at a prison camp that's been starved that somehow gained weight or maintained. It can't happen. That completely counters the idea of metabolic damage. Metabolic adaptation, however, is a very real thing. Your body, through evolution, has thought of the fact that if you lose body fat or you lose weight because you're not eating as much as you're burning, you're probably in a bad position. You may be dying. There may be a food shortage. Things may be dangerous. You may not be able to go out to get food. So our body does have an ability to slow weight loss. And it does it through a couple mechanisms. One, RMR and hunger are affected. Resting metabolic rate is affected when you lose weight. It's not usually based mostly off of the calorie deficit amount. It's mostly based off of how much weight you've lost. So the more weight that you lose, the more RMR is affected. Now that can really confuse a lot of people. We would assume that if you're a 200-pound woman and you get down to 150 pounds, a smaller you would require less calories to survive because there's less of you. There's less metabolic tissue. And even fat is metabolically active to an extent. It's 0 to 2 or 3 calories per pound. Whereas muscle is 6 to 7 calories per pound, but in function, it's about 10 calories per pound because of the way that it burns some extra while you're moving. So losing weight in general will lower your calorie needs for a day. That doesn't mean that your body is fighting weight loss from that perspective. That just means a smaller you requires less calories. Now, there is a shift in resting metabolic rate when we look at a person that went from 200 pounds to 150 pounds versus one person that was always at 150 pounds. When we use predictive equations, there is a slight discrepancy. It's between about 25 and 50 calories for most people that lose significant amounts of weight. I'm not talking about people that lose just a little bit. A little bit of weight, 20 pounds, you're probably only going down 5 or 10 calories compared to another person of an equivalent size. So it's about 25 or 50 calories. That's the discrepancy for 99% of you. In the largest examples that we have, the Minnesota starvation experiment, for people that lost 25% of their entire body weight over a period of 5 months, they only were off by 75 to 100 calories. That's the largest example we have under starvation conditions. It's the largest example, 100 calories. So a fun-sized Snickers bar is the difference between them being in that calorie deficit or being at maintenance in comparison to somebody else that had always been that weight. So if the resting metabolic rate doesn't change very much, what is actually causing that stall through metabolic adaptation that is driven mostly by the amount of weight that you lose? Well, leptin decreases. Um, T4 and T3 is what that RMR thing kind of plays from. But leptin decreasing means you are going to have an increased hunger drive. Satiety hormones are going down. Hunger hormones are going up. Ghrelin increases. It does this because your body is thinking, okay, well, I'm starving to death. It doesn't know that you're overweight to begin with, because being overweight is okay from a biological survival standpoint. You're fed. But now all of a sudden food is in scarcity. And so biologically mechanisms kick in to say, hey, we need to get this person to eat. And that's why hunger ramps up. And hunger ramping up can be discordant, especially for people that have lost a lot of weight. I mean, if you look at that person that lost 200 pounds that goes down to 150 pounds, the difference in hunger between a person that's always been 150 pounds can be very dramatic. So you are facing challenges that people who have never lost the weight don't face. This is one of the reasons that we see people that have significant weight to lose, the recidivism rates are very, very high. In general, 90% of people that lose weight will regain that weight within a year. People in our program, it's a lot better. And there's a reason we actually coach you through this. We teach you about these types of things. We go over different ways to be able to maintain, even with that increased hunger drive that tends to alleviate over time, but for some people it doesn't. So you find coping mechanisms. This change is a challenge that a lot of people don't face. So if you've had problems in the past fighting hunger and fighting weight regain, maybe you didn't have the right plan. Maybe you are on a different playing field than Deborah from the cul-de-sac because she never had to lose that weight. So give yourself a little bit of grace there, because these metabolic adaptations do kick in and can be one of the reasons that you go back. The other thing that really happens to a large extent is activity levels go down. Non-exercise activity thermogenesis takes a big hit. All of that movement that you do throughout the day, the fidgeting, the walking, you become more sluggish without even realizing it. And we've talked about this on this podcast before, where we'll say, hey, keep a step count, particularly when you are at maintenance or in a cut. Because as you go deeper into that cut, you'll notice that your step count, if you're not paying attention to it distinctly, it starts to go down. Mm-hmm. And it goes down because metabolic adaptation is kicking in to say, this bitch is moving too much. We need to stop this weight loss.
We see this a lot in competitors who are getting like stage lean and stuff like that. When you get really, really close to a show, you barely have the energy or will or desire to do anything other than feed yourself, go to the gym because you have to, but you don't really want to anymore. Like you really do stop moving when you get that lean.
Mm-hmm. And it affects you greatly. So these two things from metabolic adaptation, these two arms of metabolic adaptation that really cause you to regain the weight are both controllable things. That's a great thing to realize. You can control what you put in your mouth and you can control how much you move. You just have to be aware of the fact that these things are being affected. And it might not be that you have less willpower when you're a leaner person. You're being tested a lot more, particularly with hunger levels. And so if you realize that these hunger levels are really affecting you, you can start making some moves to address them. But people will look at this and they'll say, oh, my metabolism is broken and that's what's happening. Your metabolism isn't broken. If it's down 25 calories, like we said, is a rough estimate of what it'll be down for people that have a lot of weight to lose. It's going to be down about 25 calories. It's not much of anything. I mean, that is a quarter of a fun-sized Snickers bar. If that's what's preventing you from losing weight, I don't know how to help you, but
that's problematic.
What I'm pointing out here is your metabolism isn't the issue.
Yeah.
And even if we want to look at population-wide data outside of the cutting scenario, and we want to see, well, where does metabolism really start to dip? It doesn't really dip until you're 60 years old anyways. It stays the same between 20 and 60. And so people consistently blaming their metabolism is off. It's just not the way that it is. Your metabolism is not working against you. What's working against you is your body's ability to say, hey, I don't want to lose any more weight. And it does that through the hunger and the movement. So if you're aware of these two things, you can monitor them and then keep those up. And if you were losing weight before, you can continue losing weight by monitoring these two things. You might have to be more strict with your nutrition, particularly as you become a lighter person, because you're going to have less calories to use overall. So things will get more difficult. And this is really often the break point between people that, want to get abs and people that just have a healthy body fat level. There's a big difference between going from obese to getting into a more healthy body fat range than getting from a more healthy body fat range and having abs. It's different because the more body fat that you have to lose, the more broad changes make a big difference. Whereas when you're trying to get that extra lean for the beach or the stage or whatever it is, you have to have these very specific controls on your diet that is almost, in most cases, just unacceptable for you socially or emotionally. And that's okay. But the good thing is if you try to get down into these areas and you realize I just can't maintain that, well, then you can switch your goals and you can say, I'm just happier building some lean muscle, being healthier than I was before. I don't have to chase this unrealistic ideal that I had before. I know what's happening. I know the metabolic adaptation is kicking in. The thing with metabolic adaptation is people will say, okay, well, then how long do I have to go until this metabolic adaptation is no longer affecting me? The only thing that we see in the research that really significantly reverses this completely is to regain the body fat, to regain the weight. So you'll always deal with a little bit of it. And so you find that balance. Where is that balance for you? Are you being able to eat the foods that you want to eat from a social perspective? Are you able to maintain consistency and adherence to a diet? And if you're not able to, well, then maybe what you do is you shift your goals and make them more realistic for your lifestyle. And that's not an aggressive comment to make to people. That's to say, hey, look, realistically, from a coaching perspective, whether you get abs or not is the cherry on top of the cake for me. If you're healthier, can live a longer life, we buy you 10 years of life. You start to feel more confident in your body. You start to feel comfortable with, okay, I thought I wanted abs, but now this is where I'm comfortable and I'm feeling better about myself. That's a bigger win to me than anything else. And if having abs is that balance for you and you're comfortable with maintaining that nutrition, that's perfectly fine. But for everybody else, maybe you get down there and that's where you find, okay, well, metabolic adaptation is kicking in a little bit too much for me. It's not allowing me the social life that I want. And then you make some changes in the way that you view success. And I do want to point out, too, that when we look at people in the United States, sedentary women, their resting metabolic rate is only a little under 1,400 calories per day. For women that weight train, it's only about 1,475. So your resting
Not a
metabolic
huge
rate.
difference.
No, it's not. It's not very different. Men are about 1714, and then resistance trained men are about 1973. Now, this is resting metabolic rates. This is not adding
Right.
in your movement throughout the day.
Right.
Your exercise is not going to put a whole lot more calories on there. But
Right.
let's just say 200 to 250 if you've got a full workout. And I'm being gracious for the smaller women.
Which we already knew, right? Like we already know that exercise does not really make a huge dent in this.
No, but I mean, let's say that this is where that 2,000 calorie figure
Right.
comes from. But women are lower than 2,000 calories in
Right.
most cases. So if we're going to talk about being in a cut, and you always hear that whole, well, if I'm at 1,200 calories, I'm doing it wrong. Maybe not. I mean,
For
if
some really small women, no. Mm-mm.
no, you might even have to be at 1,000 or slightly below that. But that's a completely different conversation. But I want to bring this up because if you think, okay, well, I'm at 1,250 calories and I'm just barely losing weight, therefore I have metabolic damage. No,
No.
if you're only sitting there at like 1,400 calories as your RMR, and then you add in, let's just say 500. I mean, you're going to be right in that range.
Yeah. Especially if you
To
are
lose weight.
if you're really sedentary and your body, if you have don't have a lot of muscle. Yeah. I mean, that could be your reality.
Yeah, and being really sedentary is like less than 6,000 steps per day.
Yep.
And I bring that up because we get people all the time when they first start working with us and they're like, I got 5,000 steps per day. That's great. I'm like, that's dead sedentary. And they're like,
Yeah,
but I took a 20-minute walk. I'm like, but you sat
for the
20,
entire rest of
23
the day.
hours and 40 minutes.
Right.
And so it doesn't equal out. Keep in mind, we did not evolve to be sitting in front of a computer.
No.
And so when we think, okay, well, 6,000 steps is a lot, it just shows how much our perception is off from biology. And
Mm-hmm.
so this is a really big thing that people need to get into their heads. And if you don't have significant muscle, people talk about, okay, well, what can I do to improve my metabolism? What you can do is you can build muscle.
Gain muscle,
Yeah, but
please.
you have to spend the time to do that. And I actually had a conversation with a couple of my clients this morning. And I'm not going to name names, but there's one woman that's been working very, very hard. She's seen a good bit of success. She's tall, so building muscle is going to be one of the difficult things for her.
Yeah.
She's 5'10". She started at 160 pounds. She's lost about 11 pounds. And now we're at that point where for a 5'10" woman, that's getting kind of low. I mean, she's lean and she's healthy for the leanness that she is, but she can't really go leaner. Maybe a couple pounds at most. You're not getting down to like 130 pounds at 5'10" without being like rail thin. And so we're having that conversation. And I want to have this conversation with all of you. I mean, men will do this thing too, where they'll be like, okay, well, I'm getting into lifting for the first time. I've only been doing it for a year or so, but even that year was kind of off and on. And they think that if they just lose the body fat, they'll look ripped and toned. And that's just not the case. And so the biggest hang up point for the majority of the people that try this type of thing is that they don't spend the time building that lean muscle. And I know that people in the back of their, like when people say muscle is super important, I mean, it's a big push in the women's sector these days. Muscle is super important. It's the organ of longevity, all that, blah, 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 blah. Everyone says, yes, I believe that. And then they won't build the muscle.
Yeah.
And so we talk about this quite a bit, but I want to point this out. Take the time to do this. You might have to put your goals on the back burner for a little while. And spend a year or two building muscle and learning about performance and valuing that. Value, I call it Operation Wonder Woman, value being able to build that base. And men have to do it too. I get a lot of men that will come to me and they'll be like, yeah, I played sports growing up. I'm like, okay, what? And they're like, soccer. I'm like, okay. So we've got some muscle, but not
You mostly ran.
right. And so if cardio was like your main
You
source of
ran.
exercise, you don't have that level of muscle that's going to give you what the physique of the fitness person that you're thinking about, because they've got a lot. They probably have 20 pounds more than you.
Yeah.
That's a lot of muscle. That displays very, very differently. And their metabolism revs up because of that. And I was telling Beth about this. I have another client who is a woman who is 118 pounds now ish. 118, 119, maybe just a little bit lighter. But she came in at the same weight when she started working with me a year and a half or 2 years ago. She was the same weight as she is now. But she went through a building phase for almost all of that time. And then we cut back a few months. Now she looks completely different. The weight's the same, but that's because we've essentially replaced that weight that she was before with muscle. Her maintenance level of calories as like a 5'1" or 2" person at 118 pounds is like 2,100 calories per day. Like she's revving. She can easily drop weight. But it took time. And, even when we first started that experience where we were adding in lean muscle, and she's been one of my most successful for building lean muscle out of everybody that I've ever worked with, because we had that conversation like 3 or 4 months in, and I was like, look, it's not going to happen in 3 or 4 months, and just keep going. You've talked about how you've been on the diet roller coaster before, and this is for men too. You've been on that diet roller coaster before. If you don't have a large amount of body fat to lose, spending time foregoing that physique change, you're going to think that you're not when you're getting into building lean muscle for many, many months. It creeps up on you where you've built that muscle. And then all of a sudden, when you start to cut down later, you're like, oh, there it is. Because that little bit of layer of body fat on top of it was hiding the difference. And so take the time to do that, and you can improve your metabolism. It can help counterbalance some of these changes from metabolic adaptation, and it will make cutting easier in the future. The people that really struggle are the people that try to spend every waking moment in a calorie deficit, and they end up chewing away their muscle. And then every time they try to cut, it gets harder and harder and harder. So don't do that to yourself. Build build that up, understand what's going on with metabolic adaptation, and then you can make some changes to improve from there. All right, next question. What is the deal with high flavanol cocoa? I
What?
don't know what's going on with this because I'm getting tons of questions about this these days. I say I don't know what's going on with this because I don't know why this is back. This is something that like we dealt with this craze like 15 years ago, and then it died out, and now it's back again. I don't know who's selling this, but somebody is with a big following. High flavanol cocoa, when we look at the research, it never happens from eating chocolate. First off, it doesn't. Chocolate does not carry enough flavanols to cause the benefits. So if you think that that's going to make the change, you're going to be eating a ton of calories and probably added sugar because you're probably not getting the bitter dark chocolate to get these flavanol benefits that don't really pan out. And just because something says dark chocolate, it's not the same as high flavanol content. They're completely different things because chocolates are processed, and a lot of the ways that they're processed will reduce that content. So we do see very small improvements in vascular function and modest reductions in blood pressure, which could theoretically matter when you're at the margins of like, I'm going to have a heart attack versus not, but it's probably not really that dramatic. And when we look at the differences between this and just doing some cardio is so much better. The only times that we really even see these benefits are in people that don't exercise. And so trying to transfer this over to everybody else is probably a miss anyways, because the, benefits from exercise, benefits from fruits and vegetables, all those different kind of things are probably going to outweigh any of this anyways. So this is more than anything is an excuse to eat chocolate, which is fine. If you have the calories, eat the chocolate. It'll do you good. But but eating chocolate for these benefits is probably wrong. There are small inconsistent benefits for that cardiovascular health that I talked about. There's not really any for performance, body composition, strength, fat loss. The evidence there is the studies that suggest that are so weak that I would not use any of that as a reason to eat chocolate. You can eat chocolate just because you enjoy chocolate, but eating chocolate because it's going to improve your body composition is probably off. Otherwise, I mean, this should be kind of common sense that eating chocolate is not like the roadmap to having the best body composition. Otherwise, the American public would all have really good bodies. But that's just the way it is. What do you think about cyclical cutting? By cyclical cutting, I'm assuming that we're meaning, every year I cut during this period, every year I'm not cutting during this period, and just kind of on and off ad nauseum. Or maybe you're just doing this, you're winging it, you're cutting, and then you're not cutting, you're cutting, you're not cutting. I think that cyclical cutting for the sake of cyclical cutting is probably missing the point. I would one, never do that from these months of the year. And this is what I hate about like the winter, because the winter, everybody's like, okay, I'm not going to cut anymore. And then I'm going to cut for the rest of the year. And then I'm not going to cut anymore. And then I'm going to cut for the rest of the year. And it's that forever
Yo-yo.
yo-yo that people get on, which is really problematic. And I think it's because they look at this as a seasonal thing. And I think that looking at cutting as a seasonal thing is wrong from the start, because you're not doing what your body needs. You're doing it off of the season. And so just like we talked about with, hey, it's probably smart if you're not obese. If you're obese, sure, cut. If you're not obese, it's probably smart for the large majority of people to spend at least half, if not more of the year not cutting. And I'm not saying you have to be in a bulk, but you got to be out of that cutting scenario to give your body just some time to rest, recover, work on some lean muscle. Because again, if you're constantly cutting, you're going to raise the chances of losing lean mass. And if people pay attention to my Instagram, I mean, 2 or 3 days ago, I covered a study that looked at body recomposition. And in their sample, they showed that at about 200 to 250 calories, depending on a variety of factors, a lot of people start to lose lean muscle. And then at about 500 calories, Pretty much everybody starts to lose lean muscle in a calorie deficit, 500 calories in a calorie deficit. So if we're trying to live our life there, you're probably doing yourself a disservice by constantly chewing away at your lean muscle. And that's why you're on the cycle every year. And what's probably happening is you're getting more and more and more skinny fat every year. You're making it harder to cut. And so taking that time to actually build muscle and being patient with it is a really, really important thing. So cyclical cutting, would I recommend it? No, because cyclical suggests to me that we're always thinking about when are we going to be cutting next? When are we not? When are we cutting next? When are we not? I would never look at it that way. I would always look at it as what would be best for me right now. And for many people, cutting probably shouldn't even be on the table for a really long time. And so I wouldn't look at it as cyclical. What do you think, Beth?
I agree with that. And I do get tired of the like constant people think they either have to be doing one of two things, either building or cutting. And I really wish that more people would chill at maintenance, like live for a while. Because that's once you get through all these builds, like people do this because they don't know how to maintain, right? They either know how to kind
It's the
of,
hardest thing. It's by
yeah,
far the hardest thing.
they either want to YOLO it and just eat whatever, or they want to make sure that they look good in their bikini in the summer. It's always one of the two things. And it's like, this really isn't the objective. The objective should be long-term maintenance. Like, are you really going to tell me that you want to build and cut and build and cut and build and cut and build and cut for the rest of your life? Are you serious? Like, please be so for real. That's not what we should be doing here. And I think that there's a lot of people that do that.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people think that that's what their life is going to be like. What's really funny is if you build the muscle, you you will cut at times, because of like beach vacations and stuff like that, and that's completely fine. I don't have a problem
No,
with people wanting to be extra
no.
lean, before they go on their yearly beach vacation or something like that. That's completely fine. But the issue that I have with this, and one of the conversations that I had with some clients today, is that people will misconstrue that whole feeling of being depleted with that's what I want to look like when that's not a sustainable thing. So
Mhm.
when you finally start to become, start to view yourself as an athlete, start to value the process of building lean muscle and strength, one of the big things that starts to happen is you start to live closer to maintenance pretty much all year long.
Yep.
You might sit a little bit above or a little bit below, depending on what you're trying to achieve. But you don't demand these quick changes or these
Yeah.
dramatic changes. You start to become more comfortable with where you are. And I know that what people will say, you can say that when you're comfortable with your body, and 100% you're right. But this is where you should be working towards because we want to get you to being more
Right.
comfortable with your body and for being comfortable here. And I'm telling you that constantly trying to cut is not the way to do that. And that's
Yep.
the issue. That's the disconnect because what you were saying there with fuck you, Allan, it's completely different when you are very uncomfortable in your skin. 100%. I agree with you. But consistently driving down your lean muscle and making yourself skinny fat is not going to get
Yeah.
you
It's gonna make it worse.
that happiness that you think it's going to get you. And any coach, anybody that's talking to you, I mean, any podcaster can tell you what to do to lose weight. I mean, just lower the amount of food that you take in. That's it. Like you literally just stop eating and you're going to lose as much weight as you want. You'll lose all the weight. That doesn't mean that you're going to be healthier at the end of that journey. And that's why there's different steps to this that will usually help people out. Because if we can start to frame things correctly, if we can understand that metabolic adaptation, if we can understand the benefits that lean muscle gives us, and not just saying, oh, yeah, I like lean muscle, which like the majority of people seem to be doing that. They're like, yeah, I know that lean muscle is really good for me, but I don't want to do what it takes to get it. That's the problem. You got to do what it takes to get it. If you actually value and you actually value health, everybody says that they value health. But when we get down to it, we value seeing the scale drop. And that's where the mental aspect needs to shift. Because if we only value seeing the scale drop and we don't start to shift our experience to maybe we should be valuing performance, we're going to struggle long term. Because, outside of that first year period where you're going to see dramatic changes in weight and stuff like that, maybe in the direction that you want if you have significant amounts of body fat to work on, you need something that's going to be able to sustain you motivation and commitment wise long term. And the scale is not going to do that. because the leaner that you get, the less dramatic those changes are going to be, the less often that they're going to come. And so you've got to find something else to make those make that sustainable long term. Next question. Is there any merit to elevating your heels on a leg press? Yeah, sure. If you want to wear your squat or Ollie shoes, your Olympic lifting shoes on a leg press, you can certainly do that. For those of you with long femurs, poor ankle mobility, it can allow a deeper stretch, which can allow you to engage the quads a good bit more. I don't have any problem with people doing that. I think that Olympic lifting shoes are wonderful for that purpose if you're using them right. Any squat or leg pressing type movement can benefit from squat shoes. If you don't like wearing them, don't wear them. But I'm saying if you wear them for a squat or pressing movement and you say this feels better, every one of them it can work with, and there's no downside to it.
Yep.
The place where people get caught is using it for hinge movements. Do not use these for...
You do not want the weight in your toes on a hinge pattern.
Don't use these for good mornings. Don't use these for deadlifts. Outside of Olympic lifters, but they know that they're different under these circumstances. What is the minimum amount of protein in a calorie deficit? Okay, we've talked about protein intakes before, and I've told people I recommend depends on the study or how easy I want to keep it. So here's the actual pedantic answer: 0.72 grams of protein daily per pound of body weight, up to 1.45 grams of protein daily per pound of body weight. Sometimes you'll hear me say 0.8 to 1.5. I'm just rounding it so people don't have to deal with tenths or hundredths of a digit. But the real number is 0.72 to 1.45 is what we currently have as the data. That is encompassing all situations. When you're cutting, I would probably be closer. The leaner that you are and the more muscle you have, let me rephrase. The leaner that you are and the more muscle that you have, I would be closer to 1 gram per pound, maybe slightly higher if you prefer it, or if you're extra lean or have a lot of muscle. I think that 0.72 is a wonderful answer for people that are at maintenance or above, and they want to be in that optimal range. I think that particularly depending on a person's genetics, their sleep, all those different types of things that can affect body composition, I think that skirting the absolute bottom value under a condition that would require a little bit more protein, as we have less calories in our diet in a calorie deficit, the deeper our calorie deficit goes, the more protein we should probably take in to counterbalance some of that catabolism, the muscle loss, because it does help. Mm-hmm. I would probably err away from the 0.72. I know that there's going to be if you talk to different coaches and they say, no, he's stupid, just do the 0.72. I'm not going to argue it too much, but I think that there is, if we look at both the hard data and the soft data, and soft data, I'm referring to as like, if we look at observation studies of like everybody that does really well, even in natural physique competitions, not a single person is sitting at 0.72. The people that win, they don't sit at 0.72. Yeah. So there's probably a benefit to doing this. And mechanistically, there's a real reason that we would think that there would be a benefit to doing this. People will say 0.72, 0.8, and just say it as a floor so people don't really get caught in the weeds. And other people will say 1 gram per pound. And I think that that's fine. I don't think that any of these are wrong. I can say that the people that have a lot of muscle don't sit at 0.72 in a cut. That's what I can say. So if we want to talk about real world results, it's not 0.72, it's 1 gram or higher. Does that mean that you have to be there? Particularly if you've been tragically low historically, below that 0.72, don't even worry about that. Just get the 0.72. If you're a vegan, don't worry about that. Just get the 0.72, particularly in a cut where it becomes problematic from a source's perspective to get, adequate protein intakes. Don't put that stress on yourself. But when we're talking about all things and you're trying to set up your own programming, I want to give you the broad overview so you can understand what's going on, but understand that even getting 0.72 when you weren't getting that before is going to be such a major benefit to you and such a difference. that unless you're stepping on stage, maybe you don't need to be in the exact optimal on paper for you because optimal on paper for you is unsustainable. And even if you're just starting this out or you've just been doing this for a year or two, maybe getting into the optimal range is unsustainable and you need to take incremental steps there. And maybe 0.72 is doable for you. So you do that. And then the next, 3 months, you do zero point 0.8 and then you do 0.9 or whatever it is. And then you see where your break point is. There's a difference between what's perfect on paper and then coaching an actual person. And I want to bring that up because I'm sure that some of my clients will see this and they'll be like, I'm not at 0.72. And well, maybe you have more body fat and then you can be below that to an extent. And if you have more body fat, you can always use 1 gram of protein per centimeter of body height. Sorry, freedom units. I don't have the conversion. You're going to have to figure it out for centimeters. But the main focus here, as is the main focus, and every time we talk about programming things, is do the best that you possibly can given your situation. And if doing better is the right next step, doing better rather than doing perfect is the most important thing. You can build on doing better. So we've got the pedantic technical answers, and then we've got the, okay, well, what do we do in real life? Can you hit 0.72? If you can, don't stress over anything else. If you can't, go up incrementally. I get a lot of times when people first start working with me, one of the biggest challenges that people face is that they will say, I'm not used to eating protein. Not this much protein, like protein.
Just in general.
I'm not used to eating protein.
Yeah.
Because their breakfasts are waffles and pancakes, and then their lunch is pasta, and then their dinner is pasta.
And I used to putting protein with like making that the cornerstone of literally every meal. Well, so not just like dinner, it like literally every meal you're basing your meals around protein. It's very hard for a lot of people.
It's a culture shock.
Yeah.
And your main part of the meal is the protein, as opposed to the main part of the meal before was probably a
carbohydrates. Yeah. And people feel really full. I mean, that's actually the reason that I like to increase protein in a deficit is because of satiety factor. For just anecdotally for me personally, when I'm cutting, like this most recent cut that I went on, I weigh 147 pounds now, but I'm eating about 170 to 180 grams of protein a day. Completely my call. I prefer to eat higher protein in a cut because it keeps me fuller for longer.
And that's what, like 1.1 or 1.2 for you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is, I will say it is on the high end, but again, I've been eating this way for decades. It doesn't feel weird or hard. It's not difficult for me to hit those numbers. And I just feel much more satisfied and my belly is full. It takes a little bit longer to break that stuff down and to digest it. So it keeps me fuller for longer. So that's why I do it. That's a personal preference for me, but it is definitely on the high end. Like that would be challenging for a lot of people to do.
Sure.
But that's one of the benefits is the satiety.
Mm-hmm. And that
because when we have people who first start with us and they're going through that culture shock of having to increase their protein, what's their number one complaint? They're stuffed. They're like chewing chicken breasts out of the side of their mouth because they just can't, they feel like they can't eat any more meat because like it's really filling. You're not hungry for it.
Well, and what's funny is you'll see that even on what we consider lower ranges of protein. And so, it's not like we're telling our clients, hey, you need to be eating like 1.2 grams. I never program that.
I don't either. Not unless anybody like really has experience, like that's what they're used to doing. I never do that to people.
Well, that, or sometimes I'll do it. So higher proteins can be beneficial under two conditions. You might really need to be over 1 gram per pound. The older you are, it can be beneficial for overcoming some anabolic resistance. And the more that you demand body recomposition, you need to be over 1 gram.
Yeah.
And so if you're not willing to be over 1 gram per pound, your body recomposition, unless you're obese or brand new to training, is probably not going to happen. And again, this is one of the study that I literally covered 3 days ago on Instagram. I showed the charts and you can see as their calories go down, so does their lean mass. It starts to go away. And so body recomposition, I know that people love to point out, okay, well, it shows that it does happen in research. It does, but you have to be willing to do what is required to get it to do it. And one of the things that is required is that if you are not exactly brand new to training or you're not obese, you don't have a significant amount of body fat to lose, you need to eat a lot of protein. And so a lot of people will say, well, I want to recomp, but I don't want to eat this much protein. It's like, okay, well, then you're not going to recomp. Not unless you have like perfect genetics that will allow you to do this. And so we have these conversations with people. And if people are like, yeah, I want to recomp, and I'll say, okay, well, here's what we can do with the nutrition to give you the best chance, to give your genetics, your sleep schedule, all that, the best chance to be able to recomp. Are you willing to do this? And if they say yes, we'll try it. And those are the people that I have over 1 gram per pound typically. Outside of the people that I'm prepping for stage, they always have over a gram. But yeah, I mean, there's reasons that you would do that. And so this whole conversation of, low proteins, you never need to go above zero point 0.8. I mean, that's not true. That doesn't, it's not a one size fits all for everybody. Next question. Is insulin resistance a real thing we should worry about? That's a broad question. Insulin resistance is a real thing. Should you worry about it? Rein me in because I'm probably going to say something stupid. If you're insulin resistant, I'm assuming that you probably have body fat to lose. There are situations where you can be insulin resistant. The thing is, with insulin resistance, you don't really change anything. You don't change anything unless you're like you have an actual metabolic disorder. There's nothing to change. Like if you know that from a test that you have some insulin resistance, you would not program for yourself different than if you didn't. Because two things need to happen. You need to lose excess body fat, and in a calorie deficit, insulin resistance has no bearing.
Yep.
It doesn't affect you. Because insulin resistance, actually, if you look at the research on it, people that are insulin resistant lose more body fat through exercise than those that aren't. If you're in a calorie deficit, the calorie deficit trumps the actions of insulin no matter what. So the insulin resistance is non-contributory to anything. That's from the nutrition side. If we're talking about insulin resistance from the fitness side, the thing that you would do to counterbalance that would be to build lean muscle. And so you're still building lean muscle. You're still losing body fat. What do you need to do as the biggest thing? And most people who are insulin resistant probably have more body fat to lose than anything else. And so you don't change anything. You just go to lose the body fat. And so insulin resistance is one of those things that has become a buzzword. Yes, it will make you gain more body fat in a calorie surplus than someone that's not insulin resistant. Yes.
In a calorie surplus.
In a calorie surplus. You will gain more body fat. You will deposit more body fat than someone that is not insulin resistant. If you have significant amounts of body fat to lose, why are you in a calorie surplus? So when you go to a nutritionist or a coach, it doesn't change anything that we do because we're not putting you in the situation that it actually causes a problem. So it would only be a problem if you're insulin resistant, have some metabolic disorder, have some extra body fat, and then you're like, I'm going to bulk. That's not a good idea. But that's why I'm saying it doesn't change anything that we do, because we wouldn't put somebody who's got a metabolic disorder into a bulk.
Into a build. Yeah.
It's counterproductive for your health to do that. So the only times that insulin resistance will really come into play is you're eating like an asshole, or you're setting up your program and you don't really know what you're doing. And so you think, okay, well, Allan said that I need to build lean muscle first. I've got some metabolic disorders, but I need to build lean muscle. I'm not saying that you have to build lean muscle. I'm saying everybody could benefit from building lean muscle. Let's be conscious of the situation that a person is in. And if we have this in play, losing body fat first is probably more key than anything else. I mean, the other things that you can do, just to be thorough here, eat more fiber, stop drinking alcohol, stop smoking. I mean, alcohol is a big contributor to this. So that's a big thing to kind of turn around, because I also get a lot of insulin resistant people that are like, I just have my glass of wine every night. And I'm like, that's one of your problems. I mean, not only from like a calorie standpoint, but from a hormone standpoint, a muscle protein synthesis standpoint, from an insulin resistance standpoint, like this stuff really affects you in a lot of different ways. And not to like demonize alcohol. If you want to be that person that has a drink on the weekend, but just to say that if you're worried on insulin resistance and you're still drinking alcohol, well, then your priorities are messed up.
Yeah.
Sorry, but I mean, you're saying that you're worried about insulin resistance, and then you're doing the thing that's making it worse consistently and not changing that. So I mean, this should make people feel good because if you know that, hey, I don't really have to change anything up. I don't need to buy magic supplements. You don't need to get berberine or apple cider vinegar. You don't need to do any of that stuff. You need to control your nutrition and exercise and live a healthy lifestyle overall. Sleep helps a lot too. All right. You'll have an opinion on this, Beth. Best quad builder for home gym. I've got two that pop into my head. Sissy squats and Bulgarian split squats are some of my favorites.
Any split or lunge pattern is going to be a big fan favorite. I really like dumbbell cyclist squats, and
Ugh.
we put these into the to our group training, and I program these a ton for a lot of my clients, whether they have a home gym or are in a commercial gym. Really and truly, they hit the quads hard. I actually think that I feel much more quad engagement with the cyclist squats than I do a Bulgarian because it pushes the knees way far over the toes. So I mean, it's like a sissy squat. It's like a more disgusting version of a sissy squat, basically. I love them. I think they're a phenomenal quad builder.
You can do sissy squat leanbacks, which are different than sissy squats, and they're kind of an advanced
Mm-hmm.
move. And if you have a problem with it, get a PVC tube, and that can kind of help you use it as a spot. Um, the other thing, when you were talking about the thing that you feel in the quads the most, I've never felt anything in my quads more than reverse sled drags. So if you have
Yeah,
the ability at
yeah,
at a home gym to have
yeah.
a sled,
Or
and it's
if you have a treadmill, you can actually, when it's stopped, like when it's not on, and you walk on it, like you push it backwards with your legs. It's essentially a dead mill. You can do that on a treadmill as well.
double check with your treadmill to make sure that that doesn't damage it. I don't know if it does for the motor, but before people get mad at us, double check that works. But yeah, reverse sled drag type stuff. I mean, essentially what Beth is doing is she's creating the effect from a reverse sled drag with
Yeah, yeah.
a belt.
Dude,
But
reverse sled drag, they're nasty,
it's the
nasty,
only thing that's ever blown up my quads to that
nasty work.
extent. Okay, one last question. Are reverse hyperextensions necessary for spine health? Reverse hyperextensions, the reason that this question is being asked is because reverse hyperextensions are very, very popular in the powerlifting circles. Because wasn't it Louis Simmons that invented it?
So is this person talking about the reverse hyper machine or the 45-degree reverse hyper extension?
We just said reverse hyperextensions,
Okay.
which makes
So,
me
I
think of the
mean,
machine instead of
it makes me think of the thing that we have people do glutes on.
okay.
What
Is it
it
necessary?
works. It's this kind of six one way,
Yeah.
half dozen the next.
Is it necessary for spinal health? The answer is no. Is it good for spinal health? The answer is yes. So if you like doing it and somebody sold you on the process of doing it, yeah, you can do it. Is there magic in this compared to other things that engage the spine? No. But it's a
No.
wonderful exercise. Either
Yeah.
either the one that Beth was talking about or the one that I'm talking about, using the Roman chair like Beth is talking about, that Roman chair setup, or using the actual reverse hyperextension machine, which is like that pendulum with your legs hanging off the end.
Yeah.
You lay down horizontal on it with your at you hinge at your hip. Both of them are wonderful. They're great. They're great pieces of equipment. Most people don't do reverse hyperextensions on the Roman squat correctly.
Nope.
Most people do just back extensions. And so we go to Maui Athletics YouTube and look them up because we've got, I think we have it termed as like 45-degree
Yeah, I
hyperextensions.
mean, we do it more for glutes than we do
Spinal
for
health.
anything for
Yeah.
the erectors and low back. Like where that's not why we usually program that in.
I mean, if I was going to
I
give
mean, we
somebody a
could.
recommend, if I was going to give somebody a recommendation that they could do at home or in the gym with a piece of equipment, I would just say our Jefferson curl. I don't think that there's anything better for spinal health than Jefferson curls. This
Jefferson
is
curls are phenomenal.
this is not to get down on things like deadlifts, but a Jefferson curl actually works you through.
The full, like every single vertebrae is being worked on a Jefferson curl
Yeah, I don't think that there's a
through
single
flexion
if
and extension.
Yeah, if I had to choose a single movement, it would be the Jefferson curl. It would not be the
There's
reverse
nothing better than
hyperextension.
that. Yeah.
It wouldn't be the reverse hyperextension. And this is not to get down on that. This is not to get down on deadlifts. This is to just be, you know, to be honest about this exercise is something that everybody seems to fear, but is probably the best exercise you can possibly do for spinal rehab, spinal pain, spine health. Um, Jefferson curls are the S tier, the top best thing that you can possibly do. Now, having said that, if you have spinal pain and it's neurological, are you still there?
Yeah.
I froze on my thing. If you have spinal pain and there are neurological symptoms, please speak with your doctor before doing these. Because I mentioned spinal rehab, that this is a great thing. When I had double spinal herniation, I did these. When you have a herniation or nerve symptoms, one, you need to have some scans to make sure that it's appropriate for you to even work out first. Because if you've got like broken vertebra or some other issues, maybe it's not appropriate. But in most cases, it is, and it's probably one of the best things that you can possibly do in rehab. However, in rehab, you're going to still do the Jefferson curl for most cases, but you're going to adjust load, volume, and range of motion depending on how you respond to it. So you might look up a video of Jefferson curls. We've got one on YouTube. Type in Jefferson curls, Maui athletics, and you'll be able to see how to do it. You may not be able to do that full range of motion if you have spinal issues in play or some mobility issues in play. So what you do is you take it to that end range of motion until you start to see those neurological symptoms, and you stop right before that.
And you do them unweighted too. Like I think in our demo video, I'm holding a kettlebell.
Dumbbells or something.
Yeah, like just do them unweighted and do them standing on the floor. Because I think in our demo video, I'm up on a box because my hamstrings are really flexible. So if you're doing these brand new, no weight, just stand on the floor and go down as far as you can and come up and go slowly. Like this, it should feel good.
It should be slow. It should be
Should
slow.
feel really good. This isn't something that you need to necessarily. I mean, you can load it up over time, and I know people that do. But if you're doing this in sort of a rehab context, adding load is sort of a later step.
Mm-hmm. Now you will want to add load over time.
Yeah.
But you want to extend that range of motion first. Don't do anything nuts. I mean, 3 sets of 8 to 10 is probably a good thing to start with, assuming you're not having neurological symptoms. I mean, if you have numbness, tingling, severe loss of strength, vertigo, yeah, that's those aren't good signs. But first get cleared with your doctor, then start to do this, increase that range a bit, and then you can start to add in dumbbells or a barbell or whatever it is.
But your
And
spine should be able, like people are really, I feel like people with the glass backs are like they're so terrified to do anything with their spine. Our spines are meant to flex and
they're supposed to
extend
move.
and rotate. Like you are not supposed to just straight back all day, all the time. We are designed to move around our spines. Like people need to be doing these things, moving this way.
In fact, it's funny because people talk about posture whenever they sign up with me a lot of time. And they'll say, okay, well, what can I do for good posture? And posture, first off, there's no such thing as
Perfect
perfect
thing is
posture.
perfect posture.
Good posture is dynamic. And what I mean by that is for the spine to be healthy, you actually move it.
Yep.
If you do the things that you see from like the 19th century boarding schools where you sit up straight all the time, that's actually bad for your
You
back.
don't want that.
Yeah, it's bad for your back. You don't want to stay in a static position. This is one of the issues with people that work on computers all the time. They don't move
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
And so they get caught in these like positions. And it's not being hunched over that's the problem. It's being hunched over and staying hunched over.
Hunched over.
It's the lack of movement that's the problem. And there's enough research out there at this point that we've kind of realized that. So trying to go after a perfect posture may be doing you more harm than good. And that might be one of the reasons why you struggle with your posture is because you're trying to sit up straight all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. And so realize that posture is dynamic. Movement is good for it. Move around and work your spine through these loaded ranges when you can. You know, if you're healthy, absolutely be loaded when you do this. I mean, start off with body weight to feel it out, but then start loading as you are able to later, just like any other movement that you would do. Progressively loading within your ability is where you're going to see that progress that you want. All right, guys, that is it for us today. Thank you for spending some time with us. Reach out to us on our outlets on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, anywhere else you can find us, and we will answer your questions in a later episode. Take care, guys.